What are you doing now, Josh?
I have left the trade. Well, I haven't quite left it. I've sort of left it. I'm still keeping a foot in it, but I'm now teaching at Wimbledon College of Arts. So I'm a lecturer for UAL on the costume, the screen, and theatre course. Yeah, it had been a vocation of mine for quite a number of years before starting DNL. And I got an opportunity to start a business with Kimberly, so I jumped at the opportunity. And that has been really lovely. But yeah, times have changed. And for reasons which I won't elaborate on too much, I've decided to sort of sway away from being too tied to the tailoring trade. Yeah.
What would you say was the most, or some of the most valuable things that you learned in the last 2 to 3 years, from a business perspective and from a crafts perspective?
From a business perspective, yeah, in the last 2 or 3, I learned it from Edward. I'm just replicating what Edward taught me, really. I don't know. I'm sure there are things off the top of my head. I'm sure there are 1,000 things that I should mention, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any.
Would you say that
personally, personally, I've learned that this isn't for me.
What do you mean this isn't? Do you mean setting up your own company, or
yeah.
Yeah.
Just it's.
Can you say why? Can you say why? If you would describe, like, what were the things that brought you to that conclusion? What are some elements that people can watch out for?
I don't like making clothes anymore.
You don't like making clothes anymore?
Not in the way in which I have been making them.
Right. And what way would you say you were making them?
As in making them day in, day out, and making the same pieces day in, day out. And not so much because I'm disinterested in the clothing in particular that I'm making, but more so that I'm making it without more purpose than to make clothes. And I find that quite stifling, and quite vain. And it's always something that I battled with when going into the garmenting trade, is that it exists only in and of itself. There's nothing more that stems from it than making clothes. Okay, like the maintaining of a craft and a set of skills, and the furthering of like garmenting technique. These are all like noble things, and also job opportunities. Great, and craftsmanship in general is a great thing that we need to uphold. But we're not building a house for someone to live in. We're making clothes for people who can afford to pay the high prices for the clothes that we're making. And I just feel like there's a lack in something else that sort of turned me away from it. I'm still keeping a foot in it, but I'm going to be making tailoring differently from now on, and for different purposes. So I'm going to start a new business. It's not business, it's a social enterprise. And it's going to, because I've got a tailoring client book of friends that I really enjoy seeing and making clothes for. But I don't want to just simply be making clothes without there being any more to it. So it's basically a non-profit, and all the proceeds that come from making garments for them will go towards making garments free of charge for disadvantaged LGBTQ youth. So something that incorporates garmenting, that incorporates all the skill sets that I enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis, but also that has some kind of like community impact. then that means that now I can sort of start to feel a little bit more involved and a little bit more feel a bit more vocation for the clothes that I'm making, and also a bit more interest for the benefits that are going to be had from the garments that are being created.
It's almost as if you're describing that. What you're describing is there is a danger that the routine of your work becomes purposeless or meaningless if the work takes over the entire reason for what you're doing. It just becomes getting the work done, and it's not really related to something that you would aspire to kind of like move towards, roughly, is what I'm sensing. Well, I know. Well, I tell you what.
Yeah. It's
when
just
you talk,
like a sense of greater good. Like I've been lacking. I've been really missing feeling like something good comes from what I do. You know.
yes,
And I'm now getting that in teaching. Like I've got all these kids running around like crazy, being like, "How the fuck do I make this?" I'm like, "Do that, do that, do that." You know, and it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And also, it's nice being around people of that age who have just come out of school and are entering university, or who have been in university for a couple of years and are still like have this wonderful naivety and this like sense of like wanting to absorb. It's lovely, and I'm enjoying delivering classes to them and watching them sort of like adopt techniques, and I know that you know what I'm teaching them is going to allow them to get jobs in the future. So there's this sense of like value in that, which is really, you know, giving me shivers down my spine every time I leave work, and I'm like, wow, that was a good day. And I actually rang Valentine. For those of you who don't know, Valentine is the big man tutor, or was. He's just left.
I should interview him.
You should, at Newham College, who is the most amazing tutor that one could hope for. I mean, how great was he? Like, amazing. Like the feedback that he would give would just give you this great sense of achievement, and you'd be like, I'm good at something, you know, I can do this, and I'm gonna be able to do it. And it's just everything.
Well, I wanted to tell you, when we were walking in Knightsbridge one day, and I don't know whether we had a discussion or we were just exploring ideas. I don't know. But you stopped me in the middle of the street, and you said, Reza, listen, the highest achievement you can have in tailoring.
Shit, you've gone off. Oh, one sec. Oh, sorry, you were on the cusp of something important and my connection broke out. You were like, listen, go.
You said, Reza, the highest position you can attain in tailoring is to have your name on a shop sign.
Yeah, no bullshit.
No, listen, it wasn't that
and I didn't fucking want it.
Well, let me tell you this. Look, it's not bullshit as in, I think you said it as an observation more than, oh, this is what you have to aspire to. And I thought, well, that observation is dead accurate. And I found that the most depressing moment of that year, because it was, and it still is true for many tailors and for many apprentices when they are going into a company. It's within people to want to grow and to look at themselves and look 20 years back and say, man, I've come a long way. You know, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, I wasn't doing this, I wasn't doing that. And so what I felt within tailoring was that, look, either the business owner has to trust me so much so that they say, I'm willing to employ you as an apprentice and then as an employee, and then perhaps provide you a cutting position, and then maybe if I want to retire or if I die, you can take over, right? And I thought, well, it just seems a bit weird for me because, first of all, there is only so much growth. Like, yes, it takes a lifetime to perfect something, but I'm not going to stay 50 years in one place just to learn the basics of, for example, cutting, or the basics of running a business. You look at some people in history and they set up something and they did it when they were like 20 years old, and they perfected it by the time they were like 30, and then maybe on their 40th birthday they died. And you think like, how long does my career have to be for me to reach a level that I could actually have some impact? Like you hit the nail on the head by saying that there is a limit to this industry. There is a lack of bigger purpose for the majority of tailors beyond, let's say, family. Yes, that's a purpose. Career, that could be a purpose. But what you're saying now is a lot more important, and I wonder, why is it so that within our tailoring community, let's say within our tailoring industry, the level of purpose and the level of contribution to society is perceived as very small. Many tailors say, you're just making clothes. Many tailors say, eventually the client is just going to wear this once and then that's it, that's your labor. Whereas I think, well, if we could contribute more to society and more to our community, what would that be? And I think that one of the things of that is what you're doing as well.
Yes, I would agree. The contribution is small because you're only making clothes. I think you could argue that it's slightly greater than if you were sort of simply cutting or making within the ready-to-wear industry, in that you're preserving a craft and you're making sustainable clothing as well. But ultimately you're making very expensive clothing. So you're only making clothing for the 1%. And on top of that, all you're doing is draping a bit of cloth over a person, which isn't, to say, a particularly life-changing object to bring to someone's being. So, either you feel satisfied in doing that day in, day out, and that's perfectly fine. But I think it's common for people not to feel that way, and for them to seek other forms of what's the word? You're gonna have to help me out here.
Other forms of expression?
No.
Other forms of contribution to society, to their community?
You're gonna have to, yeah. Well, oh my God, I'm looking for one word in particular.
Greater
gratification.
Right.
Yes. I think it's common for people to seek other forms of gratification. And you're doing it by making the content of your brain available to everyone on the internet, and by striving to sort of further the craft, by also supporting your own living. That, as you mentioned, in and of itself is something worthwhile doing, probably.
Yeah. Good idea.
Especially in London.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm done, Not for me. Like running a profit-driven enterprise.
Nah.
No.
Okay.